Okay, so hello everybody, welcome to our first weekly sync. I mean, the previous one was weekly sync 0. This is the first one with actual demos and stuff. And today we're going to start with a learning module. It's the learning module about code reviews. And code reviews are a very useful tool for when you are coding in a team. So I will just go ahead and share my screen. Okay, great. You should all be able to see the white screen that says code reviews. Okay, great. So we're going to go through what is a code review, the code review cycle, what makes a code review a great code review, how can I help others review my code, how can I review others' code, and exploring code in GitHub. So a code review, it's not, sometimes we think of it as a criticism, that we try to find mistakes in the other person's code, but it's not that so much. It's a conversation about a set of changes. And it's one of the best spaces to share knowledge and learn from others. It's a collaboration space where you share your work and ask questions. So as I said, you don't only try to find things that are wrong and need to be corrected. You might even ask questions about a piece of code that you don't understand. So it's super useful. And in this way, it helps you improve as a developer. So even if you are a junior reviewing a senior's code, you can always learn a lot. And it helps your team decentralize knowledge, share responsibility, and improve code-based quality.
Is she gone or is it just me?
I can't even hear.
I think she cut out for a bit.
Okay.
Sorry, my connection dropped when I was explaining the code reviews. So I'll just share the screen again. And, okay, we were here. So what was the last part you helped? Did you hear part 5? It helps your team. Yep, and I think I was explaining part C that it improves code-based quality because sometimes we want to just merge, or sometimes we might miss something, and it's always great to have another person take a look, and it gives us, it makes us feel more sure about our code. So the code review cycle is basically this part. So when you open a pull request and you ask people to give you feedback, ask people to review your codes, you make changes, and then you go back to receiving feedback. So this is the feedback cycle, and once it's complete and the code is approved, you go to merge. And it's very useful if you find, I mean, the best place to find bugs and make good code is before the pull request. The second best place is in the code review cycle, when you are making, when you're receiving feedback and making changes. And the worst place to find bugs and fix them is after the merge, because it's more time consuming. So this part is very important. And it's very important to not rush it so much. So what makes a code review a great code review? Not focusing on stylistic changes, so stuff that can be automated with Prettier or ESLint or TypeScript or something, like missing a semicolon, using tabs and not spaces. If you get a lot of these comments in the code reviews, it's a sign that you need to either add ESLint if you don't have it, or you need to update your ESLint rules. try out the feature locally or in a test environment, because even if the code looks okay, maybe it has a bug, and it's very useful to catch it at that place. And think about if you understand the code a month from now. So if a part of the code doesn't make so much sense and it's not very readable, maybe you need to suggest some changes. And always, we shouldn't only look at the negative, we should also praise if we like something, and tell people if they're doing something right, because it helps with confidence. Default to approval, so don't view the code with a negative feeling from the beginning. Be kind and empathetic, because the next pull request is going to be your pull request and it will be reviewed. And so you want people to feel good and treat them like you would want to be treated. And you need to help others understand your changes. We will talk about that in the next section. Try to answer all the questions and take your time. So if you run the code and try the feature locally, it gives you confidence. It helps you find things that you wouldn't find from just a skim. Resist the temptation to skip it. Looks good to me. Like just see a piece of code and you are confident that it works correctly without, and so you don't test it and you find a bug later. That's not so good. And the PR can include instructions on how to run the code depending on the team. And if you're not sure how, ask questions. The PR included instructions. I usually, in my code, if I push something, sometimes I try to give my reasoning behind it. So if I choose to write a piece of code, I might in a comment write my reasoning and write my thinking behind it to help the reviewer understand it better. So how can you help others review your code? You add a meaningful PR description so the person reviewing it knows what it's about. Write meaningful commit messages. This is also very useful. And before asking others to review your code, self-review your code. So explain why you did what you did. Ask questions, even if you're the one creating the PR. And if you need it, use screen capturing tools like Loom for videos, and the other tools, I don't know them, Sketch and Zappy. So you can attach screenshots or videos if you think they can help, and you can describe just in words what functionality your code is adding. So in GitHub, you probably already know how it's done because we did it the last week. And here it explains a way to make a code review. You can either go to the files changed and review file by file, or usually I view all of the changes. And here you can, in the navigation with the next and previous, you can move from file to file. And yeah, here it says, oh my God, because usually this kind of pull requests where you add a ton of code are not so good. So it's better if you have smaller pull requests, but sometimes it's unavoidable. You can't make small pull requests. This feature is very useful, the viewed, because when you are doing a code review on a big PR and there are like, I don't know, 15 files or something, you can click them as viewed and then they get hide. So you can, you don't see them again and it's easier to review and you remember which ones you reviewed already. Okay, and here you can share your thoughts. So what has been your experience in the past with code reviews? How did it feel to do code reviews this week? And how has it felt over the last week or in your previous experience to have your code reviewed? So this, I will keep it shared. And does anybody want to add some comments, answer some of these questions? Maybe they have some insights on code reviews.
I could go first. So I've actually never had extensive experience with code reviews, because just like Christina, I have been working solo for the longest time. So it felt really good to have somebody else look at my code and give me some really solid pointers. And I really love that it was done with like a lot of empathy, and it wasn't very negative in like, oh, you should have known this. It's more like, oh, this is something, you know, that can benefit you and you can add to your code and can look nicer or neater, or hey, here's a typo, or you have duplicates over here. So it felt really, really good to have somebody else look at my code and just tell me how I can improve it. And I'm really looking forward to doing that for other people next week, because I did not get a chance to do that this week. So yeah.
That's very nice to hear that the code reviews help you. And it was a very positive experience, and that's a great way to think about it. So anybody else, maybe they want to describe how the past week felt with the code reviews?
Yeah, I can say that I also like never went through a code review. It's my very first time, and even creating a pull request. So I also had to read about it, like how to write it properly and so on. But I think it's very cool what you just said, that is a conversation, it's about sharing knowledge and learning from others, like how others write code. And, yeah, in my case with Terry, we had some conversations because he had like a different view on things than me, and it was also like good to learn from him, like how he would do things and how I would do it. And yeah, I think it will be good now to go through what we like, the issues what we solve, and then see together what like the challenges that every like each of us went through. So I think it's a very good idea.
Yep, I agree. And for me in the past, I struggled when I first did code reviews because I didn't know what to do. At the beginning, it feels like you don't know what to do. They tell you to do a code review, but yeah, it's actually just looking at the code and writing your comments. So I mean, when you read some code, you think something about it, that it's good, that it's not so good in this situation. It could be better. So basically, it's that, as you said, the conversation. And anybody else have some thoughts that weren't covered?
So for me, I think code reviews are just like about standard practices that are done like between your colleagues and maybe in the workplace. So it's just for you to share knowledge, improve on your written code, and just like learn from others too, because you're not like you want someone, you want an extra eye to look at what you've done, and it helps you in the long run, because when you are so isolated doing it yourself, you tend to lose focus on how things are being done properly. So I think it just helps you to become a better programmer, because you're not just going alone, but you're going with others. So yeah, I think it helps a lot, and it's good. And I also I love the experience here, and yeah, I love what everybody has done so far.
That's really insightful that you are not alone, you're with others, so you have to maintain a certain quality and make sure that other people also understand the code. And yeah, about the extra eye, I mean, no matter how careful you are, always something might slip. And it's always very useful to have somebody look at it.
Yeah, and I think also that like the feeling of not feeling scared. Just like, for example, in my case, yeah, it's a bit scary because it's my first code review. But as you said, if it's a conversation, it's not supposed to be critical or like putting the blame on anybody. It's just, yeah, sharing and say, hey, maybe here this was not the best solution, or why did you write this, and why didn't you think about this? Like helping each other. So yeah, it's like it feels more like, as I said, like collaboration, conversation, and not a critic.
Yeah, and sometimes the why is it like this? it sometimes might feel like you're accusing somebody, but it's actually not. It's genuinely being curious and asking why something is the way it is. Victoria, do you want to add something about your experience or not experience with code reviews?
Okay, so basically I've never really had a code review, so this is like my first experience with it. Or from the look of things, I'm beginning to see the essence of having a code review. So yeah, it's important to like have it because you get to like find out what your teammates have done on their own end, and you're able to like share your views.
Yep, and sharing the views also helps then with merging, because if you understood what the other team did, it helps you maybe with merge conflicts and stuff like that. I don't know this week if you had merge conflicts.
I didn't get that.
Sorry?
The last thing you said, I didn't get that.
I wonder this week if you had merge conflicts when you tried to merge.
Yeah, actually. So when Debbie worked on some particular things and I tried to like pull and work on whatever it was she worked, I noticed that we had conflict. So what I did was to accept whatever changes she made. So like I had to like narrow it down to removing some of mine, then I replaced with hers to be able to like have same code on both ends. So when I finished reviewing whatever I wanted to review, I then pushed back to our branch.
Okay, maybe we can talk in the demos more about, I think this is a question more for the demos. And I don't see that Patrick is not online, so we can do the demos together. Just 1 second.
Okay, so there's also another challenge. So it turned out to be that there's a link that whenever Debbie clicks on it, she's able to like navigate through the components. But on my own end, I'm not able to like navigate through the components from my own system. But she said it works over her own system. So I had to like ask Terry to share a link, and he just dropped that here on Zoom. So when I clicked, I was able to like, I think Debbie has shared it. She has shared it, yes. So I'm able to navigate through the link that Terry shared here, but the one that Debbie shared, I can't move through the component. It doesn't move on my system, so I don't know why that is happening.
So I think I know what the issue is. So the problem is, or why it's not working right now, is because probably it has not been merged completely, like from my own team and you and Debbie's team. So I think once Golfo does the merging and everything, it to start working. That's what I think. But I think the individual branches works for you. Like the one I shared with you, it works for you, and yeah, you can use that one to demo or just check everything.
Okay, because
I just want to like find out why I can't navigate on Debbie's link.
Yeah,
because I think it has already been merged.
Yeah, it looks merged, so I don't understand why it should be, because if you check GitHub, you can see that the branch was merged. So
can someone else try navigating through Debbie's link so that I'll be sure it's not
working? It's not working. It's not working.
Okay.
For some reason, it works fine for me. For some odd reason.
Okay.
For me also the main one is working.
That's strange. That's really strange.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how it was built. Like, I don't know, it was updated in some servers close to me and not other. I have no idea. Like, but I mean, we can present our work. So the two teams, you can present your work either on either link, whatever works for you. So which team wants to present their work first? So please show us a walkthrough of the functionality and then a walkthrough of the code, like how we did.
Terry, should we start?
I don't know. Okay, let's
Yeah,
go.
we can start. I mean, yeah. So Terry will share his screen to show the demo, but I can just give a little bit of introduction about what we did. So we basically work this week on the first issue, which was as a user that we want to read the names of all of the items in the shopping list. So actually our main goal was to render the shopping list items, taking the wireframe as an example. Yeah, as the main feature of the app helps the user look at what is on the list to know what to buy. In this case, we should just, we actually had a discussion about it, but we had to focus exclusively only on rendering the items and not styling the app yet. So we basically had to work, so there are two components or two files, the list item one and the list one. So we basically work on the list component because the data is passed as a prop there. And I think now, Terry, if you want, you can share your screen and talk a little bit about the code.
Okay. Okay, let me share my screen. Just a minute. Okay. Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
So
I can see it now also.
okay, let me just hide this. Okay, let me go to the components. So I and Christina, we worked on this over last week. So the essence of the project was just to render the list. Sorry, let me know what I'm saying. Okay, so the essence of this was to render the stored data in the Firestore, like the database, the Firestore database. So the thing is from the app components, the data, which is gotten from the use state and gotten from the data store, the Firestore database, we passed it as a prop here on the list components via the routes. Then from this prop here contains the data from the Firestore, and going into the list component, we destructured the data prop into the function of the list component. Then after we've done that, we imported the list item component that has the list, the bullet point of the various items. And when you see it over here, we now used from this destructured data, we use the JavaScript function, which is map to look through the items from the Firestore database. From this list item component, we also had to destructure the name and the ID. So, but before then, I would like to show you that whenever you before you want to get the various items from the list, from the data space, you have to look console your data and view it in your browser so that you have an idea of what you're actually getting from the array object. So if I do something like this and I save this and I have to start my browser and I check my console from so if I have to navigate to the list component, it shows me the array of objects. So if you check the first item on the array, it shows you the various, we're just getting the name of the data from the database. So we're just getting the item from the database, which is the name, and rendering it on the screen. Yeah, so for you to properly understand what you're getting from the database, you need to like console the data and get your item that you want to render. So after we've done that, after we've understood that what we're getting from the database, we now have to pass it into the list item component as a prop also. And using this key, the essence of this key is just for it's just an identifier. It's just a unique identifier for each of the items. So that you not like get errors on the console. So if I delete this key, the identifier for this component or for this list items, you see that an error is going to be displayed on the screen, on the console of the browser. So it says that each child in a list should have a unique key prop. So without that unique key prop, your browser, your console is always going to display this error. So until when you fix this error, that message is going to disappear. So I bring back the key, the unique identifier, and this unique identifier solves that error on the browser. So if I do this, you can see there's no more error on the browser page. So after we've done that, from this list item, after we've passed the prop cutting from the database, we went to the list item component to now import the name of for the list item. So sorry. So, and this is just on that list showing all the items from the database. So if you do this, destructuring the name from the database, you get each of the item from the database. And to really like check whether we did this thing correctly, if you go to your Firebase console, you know that each of these items correlates with what we are displaying on this screen. So I know that Golfos shared the Firebase and console URL with us. And if you check it properly, you see that each of these items is the same thing with what we have on the screen. So I think that is all from my end. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you for your great description. And by the way, Terry, I like your VS Code layout very much, that you have the Explorer on the right and the fonts and all that. Yeah, your code, it is very clean, no unnecessary things, super simple. And so great job. I don't really have any questions. It was
I'm so sorry. I know so it was my idea that I used another method to look through our items, but I know you and Peter had like reservation about using that method, so I had to like change it for everybody to follow and understand. Yeah.
By the way, honestly, I suggested Peter suggested the map method, but for me, I would like to learn about your method. So why did you prefer it over the map? Because I honestly haven't seen it anywhere. In all the tutorials, they have the map method, and it's my first time seeing it, and I need to research on it.
It was also my first time to see it, and I also asked him.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if it has some advantages, and because
yeah, so the unique advantage of that method is just to React like takes care automatically with the unique ID, which is the key. So you don't necessarily have to pass in the key prop for it to render your item. So it's automatically like does it on the ground and just like prevents you from doing the extra work of passing the key prop, and yeah, that's the essence.
So does it create new keys, or does it somehow look if there is already a unique identifier in your data? I mean, it can't possibly know that, so it probably creates new keys.
So I think it does it on the ground, so you don't really have to, except you want to like use the routes, like maybe you want to navigate to individual routes, like for instance, different pages. That is when you have to now pass the ID. But if you are not like using that, I think there's no need of you worrying about using the key prop.
Yep,
You're right.
I agree. So if you don't want to specify the keys for some reason and you just don't care about them at all, it sounds like a really great method. So
I can also share, I can share the resource with you that I found out this. I also shared it with Christina. So I just like look for the link and yeah,
yes,
thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, yes, you also talked about this. I don't remember in the office hours, but I think we talked about this again, but I didn't understand it so much at the time. But yes, please share the resources in Slack so we can all see it.
Okay.
So does anybody have any questions for Christina and Terry or the code? Any comments? If not, we can pass over to Debbie and Victoria.
Yes. So I was thinking of just doing a very quick run through of what we did this week or this past week, and Victoria will be showing us the code and just walking us through how we arrived at that. So our issue for the week was to allow the user be able to navigate to all the pages in the application by clicking the links. So this means that if the user were to go to the home page, they would be able to click on the home to go to the home page, to go, click on the link to go to their list to see a list of the things that they want to put together, or to also go to the add item link as well to be able to go to the add item page. So we just worked on something really small, so it's not big at all. But basically, our job was to make all of the links very, very functional and just allow a user to move from each link. So I think I'm going to just hand over to Victoria now to just do a very quick walkthrough of how we achieved this, the mistakes I made, and how she helped me correct that.
All right, thank you, Debbie, for the intro. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. Okay. All right, so just as Debbie explained, we were asked to ensure that our nav bar works, meaning that the user should be able to navigate from one component to the other. So how we achieved that was that we went on the app.jx and we took the components that were supposed to render and we picked them out and rendered them on our layout component. So for the first one, we picked the home component and we rendered it on the layout component. So what we did was that we added a nav link to the home component. That was how we're able to achieve that particular task. So what we did for the nav link, you would notice that for list and the add item, they all have the components. But for home, what we have is we just have to like get this out because it's already rendered somewhere on the element part. So like we have the route part tagged as element on the layout. So we had to just pick this out instead of just coming around to add home component to it. So at first we were making some slight errors where we had to render using the .js. So like instead of rendering list, we added list.jx. So it wasn't working at some point. But when we removed the .jx from the list and rendered just the way it was on the app.jx, we noticed that it started working. Then we also had minor errors where we didn't pick out the the components the way it was listed on the app.js. So we noticed that it's very important to ensure that whatever you are trying to render on your layout component has the same capital letters. So like it's very important to like note that if you are having capital letter here, if you're having camel case, sorry, here, you are going to still render it the exact way you have it on your app.js. Otherwise, if you mix, for example, if you pick add items and instead of having it in camel case, you don't do that, the code is not going to work because it's different from what you have on your app.js. So we're able to realize that it's very important to ensure that whatever you have on the app.js is what you are rendering on your layout component. So yes, that was how we're able to achieve the tags. Then also Terry also commented that we take out all the comments we had yet because initially we left the comments and we're able to also clean that out. So that was what we did this week. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I like how you described step by step and even talking about your mistakes and what you learned. And the part about, as you said, that the capital letters need to be the same. This is called that component names in React are case sensitive. So you might see it like this. So as we said, it needs to be exactly the same. You can't, like for variable names in JavaScript, you have to write exactly the same for it to work. And
Okay.
I want to ask something else. So the end code, I mean, I can share my screen and we can verify that it works. It works on the, as I said, the main link, although some of you says that it works for you and not. Here I can just click on the items. I can see the route changing. Here I can pull the items, I can see them, goes to home. So it seems to work properly, and I will try, even if I type in the URL, it works. So great job. And you, like the previous stream, you just added the necessary code. So no unnecessary code, no extra stuff. So that's very good. Although talking about extra stuff in the office hours, Peter made a nice suggestion that if you are finished early with your task, you can add some extra things like styling and stuff, but you just have to keep in mind that more things will be added in the next issues. So if you have time to maybe add some styling, just keep in mind that in the future you might need to change it. And if you have extra time, you can start adding the styling now. But don't worry about the styling. That's the basic direction. So thank you very much. Great job to all of you. And I believe this week will also be great. Just Victoria and Debbie, one last question, that at some point there were 2 PRs of your work. So maybe something happened there with Git or something like that. Why at some point were 2 PRs?
Okay, so the thing is, I've never really done a pull request before. So at some point, I was thinking that both of us were supposed to like make pull requests individually. So when I saw your comments, I then knew that okay, one pull request was supposed to like serve for both of us. So I then went to remove mine.
Okay, cool. So it was just a misunderstanding, but
Yes.
okay, awesome, cool. Yeah, and another thing I want to say about pull request is GitHub has this very useful feature where you can make a draft pull request. This is useful if you want to check out what your pull request will look like, but it signals to other people that you're not done working yet. So you can make the draft pull request, you can do your changes, don't have to worry if your code looks good or not. And when you are ready to ask for reviews from other people, then you change the status from draft to normal. And I can show you a few screenshots on Git.
Can you show that? Because I remember you mentioned it, but I didn't know how to do it.
Yep, I'm going to show. It's not super straightforward the way GitHub does it.
Because like
it's a bit,
when we had the, I think it was the orientation call on the issues, when they show the issues, there were several columns where you could move the issues, but now whenever I open GitHub, I don't see those. And I only see the filters on top, if the issue is open or if it's closed, but I don't see the columns anymore.
yes. Oh, wait. Let me see how this is done. You have to go to projects. So just a second, I'll share my screen again. So this with the columns, you can find it if you go to projects. Here you see the issues. And if you go to projects, here it says it has a project named Smart Shopping List. So we should have, okay, they moved to done. Were these moved automatically because you merged? So normally we should, like now I can move these cards here because these are going to be added to in progress after we finish today's weekly. So in progress means you are working on it. Ready for peer review means it's ready to be code reviewed by the other team. Ready for mentor review, it's going to be reviewed by the mentors, and done, you move it, or I guess it moves automatically. And this is useful for seeing at which stage everybody is, and maybe if somebody needs more help or something. But
so whenever we move the issues to any column, the status changes automatically.
I have no idea. I mean, I suppose this one, unless somebody moved these cards, but I guess nobody moved the cards.
Not me at least.
Okay.
I didn't move it. So I was even wondering why. I was looking for where to move it. So
Okay, Terry, sorry, you said you did move it or you wanted to move it?
I didn't move it. I wanted to move it, but I didn't find the issue or the board to move it to.
Okay, so I assume that these might be linked to the pull request. So if you do a merge, then the board gets updated, but it doesn't get merged if you move a card from ready for mentor review to done. It doesn't get merged then, but if you merge it, then the cards get automatically moved.
Sorry, who moved these cards to the done section? Were you the one that moved it?
No, as I said, I think it was done automatically. I need to look into this because I see here that it has the purple, and I think it doesn't show the purple when it merges. So maybe there's a Git action, a GitHub action that moves these, but I have to look into it. So maybe when it got merged, I will check this out because it's very interesting, and I'll let you know. Yep, so it's in the projects, and in the project when we're going to do retros, you will also find the retros there in the projects section. So I will also need to look at. And now we can look at the issues for the next week. So I will share again my screen. And so this week we have issue 3 and issue 4. So issue 3 is that as a user, I want to set up a new shopping list so I can start tracking purchased items. So I don't know if you noticed in the code that the shopping list is associated with a specific free word token. And we need to allow users to start new lists so they can save the things they need to buy. So to start a new list, we need to generate a new unique token. save the token to local storage, and show the user the list view. Up until now, the app had a token. It was my test list. So it used this one, but before we can allow users to make new lists, we have to stop showing them this test list. So you have to add, first of all, this library as a dependency of the project, because it contains a generate token function that you need to generate the token. And it has some documentation here. And important, it will look a bit like this. And the string my test list in app JSX is replaced with null, so users are not automatically subscribed to any list when they first view the app. And then you check if a user doesn't already have a token stored in local storage. Then a button in the home component allows them to create a new list. Clicking the button generates a new token and saves it to local storage using the setlist token function in app JSX. And once the token has been created and saved, the user is redirected to the list view so they can see their list. But if a user already has a token, they're automatically redirected to the last list view, so they don't see the button that allows them to create a new list. Here it explains a bit the set list token, how it should work. It should take one argument, the new list token. It's going to eventually look like this wireframe. So you can have an idea of what the whole app will look, but for now you have to just create a new list, not add this part. The second part about sharing token or join an existing list. And here it says it's sufficient just to have a simple create list button. And although you're not required to save the token to Firestore, some teams have opted to also save the token to Firestore when generating the token. This either can be done now if you have time, or you can do it in the future. So whatever depends on your progress. And yes, does anyone have questions about this issue?
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so thank you so much. So I want to really like find out. So this creates token. When you create the list token, are you like, would there be like a form or like an input form, maybe a text input that you can let the users like save the token, or it's not necessary for that to be created?
Nope, if I understand you were asking, so you mean if the user will be able to set their own token, or it will be automatically generated?
So for instance, if I click on this create a new list button, would there be like a pop-up that would have like an input field?
Nope, for now, the user doesn't even have to see the token. The token is generated automatically, saved to local storage, and the user just goes to their list. That's all. They don't do anything else.
Okay. So the token is like a unique ID, right? To be an ID. Okay, I understand.
Yep, you are going to see it when you use the function from the library that generates the tokens. Here it has the example 3-word token. It's going to be 3 words, 3 random words.
Okay.
And later you will be able to share it. So you will be able to view it and tell other people about it. But for now, you just create it and you should be able to see it in local storage. That's how you're going to see what the token is. And for debugging, you should be able to also understand how local storage works, how to delete the token to be able to debug easier. And any other questions?
No, I'm fine now.
Okay, and we can always talk during the week, and if we have more questions about it. Let's go to issue number 4. And as a user, I want to add a new item to my shopping list so I can start recording purchases. So users need to be able to add items to their shopping list. To do this, the add item view should present them with a form that allows them to enter two things: the names of the item and an estimate of when they think they'll need to buy the item again. And there's a README file for the shopping list API. That you can check out. So here describes the parameters that it takes. And here's some descriptions of what it does. I won't go over it in detail now, but we can discuss it over the week if somebody has questions about the API. So the UI related tasks are going to be that the home view displays a form that allows the user to enter the name of the item and select how soon they anticipate needed buying it again. So there will be three choices: soon corresponding to 7 days, kind of soon corresponding to 14 days, and not soon corresponding to 30 days. The input that accepts the name of the item has a semantic label element associated with it for accessibility. And the user can submit this form with both the mouse and the enter key, again for accessibility. And when the user submits the form, they see a message indicating that the item either was or was not saved to the database. So you need to also handle errors. The data-related tasks are that the console log in the add item function in Firebase.js is replaced with a function that adds the new document to the Firestore database. This function will be imported from the Firebase Firestore module. So here you will need to make the connection of the app with Firebase. And the user's soon, not soon, kind of soon choice is used to calculate next purchase date. I think the calculation, okay, maybe it's in the next issue how it's calculated, okay. So when this feature is implemented correctly, new items will automatically show up in the list view because stream list item gets new data from Firestore every time there's a change. So the list should start out empty and items should be added as you go. And you will know your label is correctly implemented if you click on the label and keyboard focus moves to the related input. And you can check out how label works on this and the NDoc. Users will be able to submit the form with the enter key if you listen for the right JavaScript event on the right element. If you're adding an on key down listener anywhere you might be overcomplicated things. So you need to check out how to do this in the best way. The add item form has the potential to be a lot of scope. And this wireframe has notes related to accessibility and UX. So it will look kind of like this. And it gives some tips on how to make it more accessible. That, for example, one of these options should be selected by default. Give an error message or a success message once the item is added. So this wireframe is very useful to follow. And any questions on this?
Okay, I think this seems more complicated than the last task we did.
I agree also that the two tasks aren't
way more, yeah.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, this will need more code. I don't know if it's more difficult or not, but it will definitely need more code.
No, we can do it.
Yeah, but
Yes, we can.
This feature, there's not a way to separate it because when you're adding items, so you also need to connect to Firestore. You can't avoid it. So it has a lot of stuff, and you need to add HTML. So for this week's themes, let me see what the themes are. I can see it here in the project brief. And this week we have Terry and Victoria, and Christina and Debbie. So does any of you have any preference for issue 3 or issue 4?
I think I'll go for
I'll
issue
go
3.
for
I
issue
don't.
3.
Oh, that was quick. But I spoke first, so
Ah, sorry,
no
yes.
problem, no problem.
Who spoke first because I couldn't see?
me.
Oh, wait, sorry, you Debbie. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I would
So-
love the opportunity to work on the 3rd issue with Christina, Sari, Terry, and Victoria. But
No,
yeah.
no problem.
Yeah, I mean, you
All right,
deserve
no
it. You
problem. We'll take 4.
deserve it because you were faster. So I'll sign it issue 3 for you. So Terry and Victoria get issue 4. And
Okay.
Right.
next, I don't know next week how the issues are going to be, but okay, this time we have a more complicated one. And okay, now I guess I can stop sharing the screen. So for this week, we're going to have, let me check. Office hours are going to be done by Patrick, and also he will be doing code reviews. So probably one of these days he will send in Slack when he's going to do the office hours. And later this week, after you have reviewed the pull requests among yourselves, you can tag him for code review. And that is all. If nobody else has comments or questions, we can end the weekly and start working on the issues.
Perfect.
And I'm going to start the parent threads like the previous week.
What? Sorry, what did you say?
I'm going to start the parent threads in Slack like the previous week.
Ah, okay.
Oh, okay.
Good, perfect.
Okay, so thank you very much and have a great week.
Thank you as
Have a great
well.
week, everyone. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye, goodbye.
Bye.